back here.
Unfortunately, my phone. So it's underneath. Yeah, and it's gonna. I don't have the ringer off. Sorry. Okay. All yours. All yours. Prohibition is 21.
So it's repealed.
Repeals.
Yes. Roosevelt.
Yep, 21 is repealed.
Of course. Straight line, it's earlier. I'll give you another one. Straight line of both sides. Straight line of artificial house.
This is a great shot.
All of that.
Yeah, those.
I know. That's perfect panorama.
Show the trailer.
Oh, there she is. Right. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. This is that's good. On behalf of Lenox Hill Neighborhood House, I'd like to welcome you all to our candidates forum, where we'll be hearing from the candidates from both the 12th Congressional District and the 73rd Assembly District. My name is Elizabeth Grossman. I'm the Legal Advocacy Director here at Lenox Hill Neighborhood House. We are excited about our partnership with our co-sponsors, Carnegie Hill Neighbors, the East 60s Neighborhood Association, and the East 83rd, 84th Street Block Association to be able to bring this forum to the community. For those of you who are not familiar with the Neighborhood House, we were founded in 1894. Next year is our 125th anniversary, so you'll hear a lot more about anniversary celebrations in the coming months. We've been in this building since 1928. We offer a wide range of services for the community, including 2 senior centers, a fitness center, adult education classes, legal services, Head Start programs, after school, and summer camp. You can visit our website and the back table up there to learn more information. We work very closely with all the elected officials in our community, and we look forward to our continuing relationship with whoever wins this year's elections. I'd like to thank Julia Peterson in the back and Lauren Bernstein, who many of you met in the front, for helping make tonight possible, along with our wonderful moderators, Catherine Dunayevich and Chris Hudway. Many of you have submitted questions that the moderators will try to ask the candidates. We'll do our best to ask the questions. We're going to ask the questions that apply most broadly to the greatest number of candidates, and we probably do not have time to ask all of the questions that have been submitted. The moderators will explain the rules of the forum, but only moderators may ask questions of the candidates. So we're asking that each of you hold any applause, comments, any gestures, any words about the candidates until the conclusion of each race. Please, no speaking, no interrupting the candidates, and the same for the moderators. We'd like this forum to be an example of how our community can interact with each other with respect, even if we disagree or have differences. Thank you to the candidates for taking the time to be here and tell us about their positions. Now our moderators tonight will introduce themselves and explain the procedures for tonight's forum. Thank you all for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Hullig. I'm a housing attorney here at Lenox Hill Neighborhood House.
Hi, I'm Catherine Dunayevich. I'm a legal advocate here at Lenox Hill Neighborhood House.
So we're going to start by introducing the candidates with some biographies pulled from their campaign websites, beginning with Congresswoman Maloney. First elected in 1992, Carolyn B. Maloney is a recognized national leader with extensive accomplishments on financial services, national security, the economy, and women's issues. Maloney has authored and passed more than 70 measures, including landmark legislation like the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, the Debbie Smith Act, and the Credit Card Act. Maloney is currently a senior member of both the House Financial Services Committee and the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and the House Ranking Member of the Joint Economic Committee. Maloney has delivered more than $10 billion in federal aid to New York City, including funding for the two largest transit construction projects in the nation, the 2nd Avenue Subway and the East Side Access Project, both of which run through her district. And she has helped to create thousands of jobs in New York. Congresswoman Maloney has received numerous awards and honors during her time in office and is an active member of a plethora of local and national organizations.
Scott Hutchins. A long road of changing policies and downward mobility led Scott Andrew Hutchins to activism and eventually political candidacy for the Green Party. After 2 degrees, amassing student loan debt, and suffering from severe medical issues, Scott was unable to secure adequate employment, becoming destitute in spite of the thousands of job applications. Scott was forced to enter the New York City shelter system May 25, 2012, where he has lived ever since. Rather than letting it destroy him, Scott turned to activism. Since then, Scott has used his blog to draw attention to the atrocities of the shelter system and the governing economic system from which it teaches. He continues to work with activist group Occupy Wall Street, Alternative Banking, OccuRevolve, Picture the Homeless, and the Green Party, and founding member of the New York City Community Land Initiative.
Mr. Eliot Rabin was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. Eliot has been working since he was 8 years old. He graduated from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, with a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science and Government, and attended law school at University College London. As a distinguished veteran with 40-plus years of entrepreneurship in Manhattan, Eliot has unique insight into the numerous challenges and problems of those who have the fortitude to face the daunting task of living and doing business in this city. Eliot is particularly concerned by New York's bloated bureaucracy, exceedingly high rent taxes, and diminishing quality of life. A notable figure in the community, Eliot is a non-politician who will fight for what we need without regard for personal gain or higher political aspirations. And with that, we'll talk about the rules of today's forum.
During this forum, each candidate will have the opportunity to make 90-second opening statements. After the opening statement, we will have about 20 to 25 minutes for the question-answer portion of this forum. All questions will be asked by the moderator, which will include a select number of audience questions. Each candidate will have approximately 2 minutes to answer each question. Each candidate will receive 10-second warning and then a stop indicating that your time has run out. Finally, each candidate will have the opportunity to make 1-minute closing statements.
So we're going to begin with opening statements from the 3 candidates running to represent congressional District District 12 in Washington. We will begin with the current U.S. Representative, Carolyn Maloney, followed by Mr. Eliot Rabin, and finally, Mr. Scott Hutchins. Congressman Maloney, would you like to begin with your opening statement?
Thank you very much, and thank you so much to Lennox Hill Neighborhood Association and for everybody that's brought this and made it happen, and for all of you caring about your democracy and being here. This election is incredibly important. It is one of the most important in my lifetime in order to restore accountability, checks and balances, and transparency in our government. We need a Democratic majority, and I'm asking for your vote of support to be part of that Democratic majority that will have a check and balance on the Republican leadership in our country, which now controls the presidency, the House, and the Senate. I want very much to go back to Congress to fight for health care. I've had to go to the floor of Congress 60 times to fight to just preserve health care. They want to abolish pre-existing conditions, affordable and available health care. 30 million people now have health care that did not have it before. I want to be part of the effort to make this health care better, expand it to even more people. We need good jobs. We need infrastructure and improvements in infrastructure. And infrastructure provides big and good jobs. I brought the federal funding for the 2nd Avenue subway. We hope to build it up to 125th Street and down to Wall Street. And many other projects, the L train and others. And also we need to combat corruption. After Citizens United, the year it came into effect, there was $144 million in congressional campaigns this year. It's $44 billion as in billion. And I'm over 3 seconds, I guess. I give my colleagues as much time as they need. I apologize, I was about 3 seconds over. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Maloney. And next, Mr. Eliot Rabin.
First, I'd like to congratulate you, man, on your service to our country.
Thank you. I want to congratulate you on yours. Thank you very much.
You're more than
And for
welcome.
providing jobs and small business and your whole
It ain't
record.
been easy.
I know, it's hard.
I agree with Mrs. Maloney on just about everything she said. I am not a politician. I don't have all the statistics at hand that my opponent has, but I have one thing. I have civility, I have tolerance, and I have, most of all, common sense. It's wonderful that we built the subway. It's not wonderful that it cost 4 times to go 1 mile than any other country in the world. That's a lot of money, all right? And it also took over 40, 50 years to get it there. I believe in socioeconomic divisiveness in this country has to cease. You tell time in me over there? Okay, cool. I believe that we have an educational system that's on the decline. The city of New York spends $30 billion a year, and teachers still have to ask their students to please bring pencils and paper. That's absurd. You have a Rikers Island situation. It's for political gain. I'll go into that later because I have 10 seconds left. That's a real estate ploy. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I'll stop now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rabin.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Hutchins.
District 12 needs a change. Too long we've been represented by a very conservative Democrat whose progressivism seems limited to some of the most big leaf issues. Maloney voted for legislation that led to the 2007 through 9 crash that has pushed even the educated into low-wage work, causing homelessness to skyrocket. She voted for Bush's war in Iraq and continues to have a voting record for war spending, leading to the genocide of brown people. She has no respect for the Bill of Rights, co-sponsoring Schumer's unconstitutional Israel Anti-Boycott Act that would imprison people for exerting a fundamental First Amendment right, just as she voted to curb our Fourth Amendment rights, voting yea on the Patriot Act, but has yet to co-sponsor the bipartisan bill to end U.S. support of the Saudi war on Yemen. Unlike 131 Democrats, she voted for the 2006 Secure Fence Act, is supporting Trump's border wall next. She agrees with him on Iran. She hurt unions by voting for permanent normal trade relations status with China. Our district needs a true progressive who wants to expand democracy, restore Glass-Steagall banking restrictions, a nationwide version of Utah's Housing First to end homelessness, universal health care, progressive taxation, sanctions for human rights abusing countries, abolish student debt, living wage jobs, genuine prison reform, to stop wars, abolish ICE, ban hydrofracking, and divest from fossil fuels. Key issues in my Green Party platform. I'm an organizer with Pictures for the Homeless, Occupy Wall Street, whose experience includes lobbying the offices of state assembly members Millman and Teal to end the virtual slave labor that was the work experience program. Don't return a 1%er to Congress.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hutchins. And we'll now begin with our first question for the candidates. With the United States deficit increasing by 17% in 2018, many are concerned that the budget deficit will continue to grow at a substantial rate. What benefits or drawbacks do you see in the recent tax overhaul, and would you consider a reduction in Social Security or other social safety net programs to balance the budget? We'll start this with Mr. Rabin.
Well, I am against, 1,000,000% against calling Social Security an entitlement. It is a savings account. How do we deal with the deficit? We create jobs. We create an educational system, technical and vocational, which we've done away with over the past 15, 20, 30 years. And that's a disaster in itself. There are plumbers making more money than many college graduates today. Nothing wrong with that. You need them. The deficit, well, China owns most of your debt. And lo and behold, if they decided to call that debt in, they would crash, we would crash, we'd all crash. I don't profess to know super specifics about any of this stuff, but I will find out. Bottom line, is the deficit as bad as everybody seems to think it is? It's really not. It's really not a deficit.
And Mr. Hutchins.
I would very strongly oppose any kind of entitlements being cut. The real situation is we're giving gifts to the wealthy. This tax cut on the rich was totally unfunded. They're stealing Social Security more or less because it's money that you put into. And they're also stealing our money with all the war spending they're going on. Like I said before, they're helping Saudi Arabia to kill innocent people in Yemen. We're involved in wars in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Niger, Libya, and Somalia. We need to stop that. They're not threats to us. There might be threats to some capitalist interests, but they're certainly not threats to our safety. That's where we need to go. I mean, there's no reason. Our tax money should be used to help us. It shouldn't be used to help some wealthy people who are making a lot of money killing people. So that's where we need to look. We need to look at the war spending. We need to look at our gifts to the wealthy and to Wall Street. That's where we need to make these changes and eliminate the deficit, because the deficit really isn't that bad, because the deficit is borrowing from ourselves. What's really an issue is the debt, because the debt is where we're borrowing from other countries. So deficit, we're just borrowing off our future productivity. So it's not nearly as big a concern as the debt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hutchins. And Congresswoman Malone.
I would say both the debt and the deficit are concerns to our country. I'm concerned about it, and that's one reason I voted against Trump's tax cut, because he gave a tax cut without paying for it. We have a law in Congress that you had to pay for whatever you did, and they just ignored that and gave this huge tax cut that has grown the deficit. Now, historically, if you look at presidencies of Democrats and Republicans have always grown the deficit more than Democrats. Actually, when President Clinton was president, we balanced the budget, and we were on the road of getting totally out of debt, which I think is important. But what they've done is they've now put pressure on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, programs that have been successful in helping people and securing people. I have fought against the Republican efforts to really privatize Social Security. This was a big concern under Bush. After we had the crash in 2008, if we had privatized Social Security, people would have been sleeping out on the street. There would have been no help for them. Social Security is not an investment scheme. It's a retirement program. People pay into it. And this tax cut that's not paid for. Now, the Republican majority saying, well, we don't have the money to pay for the tax cut, so now we've got to cut Social Security and Medicare. They created that problem. They created that problem by giving a tax cut, but we didn't have the money to pay for it, and then now trying to go after what we call benefits for people who need it in our country. So I'm opposed to them cutting these programs that are vital. You'd be surprised how many people in the district that I'm privileged to represent, their sole income is Social Security. and in many cases Medicare is their sole health care. And Medicaid is essential for people who are in need. I agree with Mr. Rabin, we need to grow jobs, we need to grow our economy. That's why I'm so strongly supportive of infrastructure spending. There hasn't been $1 in these 2 years of the Trump presidency put into infrastructure. All the infrastructure projects I have in my district, and it's over $10 billion of federal funding, all were allocated by prior administrations. The only thing I don't agree with my good friend Mr. Rabin is the Second Avenue subway was promised for 100 years. 100 years. He said
I didn't want to
50.
get carried away.
It was 100 years. And when I went to Congress, I said, I'm gonna make this thing happen. I worked on it every single day, and it's now running. And it's the best subway in the whole country. Not New York City, not New York
I don't mean
State.
to cut you off, Congresswoman Maloney.
I apologize.
But I do know that Mr. Rabin signaled that he is interested in continuing this answer. I do not believe he is full.
Okay. First of all, I really feel this, and I'm gonna say it like it is. I think the fact that we are also party-oriented, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, Greens, this, that. We need to deal with our country and our constituents with basic common sense. For example, we need another tunnel. I'm not sure whether you voted for or against the Gateway Tunnel, but that's the tunnel that runs from New York to New Jersey and vice versa. All the tunnels are decrepit. In fact, when you go through a tunnel, you sort of look up and see a little bit of water leaking up there, and you say, oh my God, am I going to get stuck in there and it's going to flood? And frankly, a lot of people are afraid. And just every day, a brick falls off a bridge. Every single day, something is going on in the infrastructure. Thank God we're not in Italy and the bridge didn't collapse quite yet. Bottom line is what you need to do to cut deficits, to cut debt, is to create jobs. Me, 41 years in business in Manhattan, I have created jobs. I have never paid less than minimum wage. In fact, we have been at $15 an hour for quite some time. We have major medical for all our employees. We had 22 employees due to rent situations in Manhattan. I'm down to 2 stores, okay? I can't pay the rent. And now we're down from 100% medical coverage to 60% medical coverage. It's outrageous across the board. You have 2,200 empty stores in New York. Why? Let's talk about real estate interests. Let's talk about the
I
tax
think we should
rate.
talk about those things, but let's save them for another.
You got
Thank you,
it,
Mr.
okay?
The Trump administration has stated its intent to reduce or end family migration, by which U.S. residents are able to bring over family members to join them in the United States. If Congress were to pass a comprehensive immigration bill, would you consider voting for it if it included modification or elimination of the family migration program? If so, what other provisions would be necessary to earn your support? I'm going to start with Mr. Hutchins on this question.
I think at this point that our immigration laws are too harsh. They've been increasingly more arduous since the 1970s. People like to talk about how, oh, my parents, my grandparents, they all entered this country legally. And it's like, well, they put so many more restrictions on entering the country. It's absolutely out of hand. And I certainly oppose anything that Trump is doing regarding keeping people out. It's true, we do need vetting for these immigrants, but it's just become just really extremely racist in the way that it's being implemented. And we really, this is a country built on immigration. We need to keep immigrants coming into this country with the same sort of fairness that we have had in previous decades.
Thank you. Congresswoman Maloney?
We are unique as a nation in that we are a nation of immigrants. All of us have our parents who flee somewhere or someplace, especially an Indian Native American. And we have been very welcoming to immigrants, and they have contributed a great deal to this country. I am always impressed by the number of immigrants who become CEOs, create their own small businesses, large businesses, and make contributions to our country. We do need safe borders. 9/11 has taught us that, and we did major reforms after 9/11 to make this country safer. and to have a better understanding of who's coming to the country and an understanding that they will be good, honest, contributing citizens to our country. So I support comprehensive immigration reform. I support helping the dreamers who have no other country except for America. They were brought here as children. The only language they speak is English. And many I've met with and know in the district that I represent, they're good students, hard workers, and I believe they deserve a shot at being able to stay and contribute. This has been one of the most difficult areas to work with Republicans on. When Mr. Rabin said there was a divide, I once had a bill in to make 16 people residents who had lost their relatives on 9/11. So their parents or their spouse or their sister or brother was killed because they thought they were Americans. And I could never pass that bill. I passed many 9/11 bills. I could never pass that bill. The Republican Party is very transient on immigration reform.
Thank you, Congresswoman Maloney. And Mr. Rabin, would you like to address him?
Yes, I would. It is a very complicated issue. You have to acknowledge that in our country, we are the only truly heterogeneous country in the world. What brings people together? Commonality of purpose, primarily. Commonality of language. And I do believe that English, as a requirement for citizenship, legal entry into this country, should be a requirement. How do you fix the so-called caravan right now? Well, one idea is to put the military. Is it good or bad? I don't know. Is it internment camps? That sounds like World War II to me. Or is it to say to these countries, when you have the Venezuelan president sitting in Turkey, eating a steak, and the people in his own country can't even afford one meal a day, I would cut off aid to these countries unless, and you can talk about sovereignty all you want, but when citizens have no rights, there is no sovereignty.
Thank you, Mr. Rabin.
A member of the audience has requested the candidates use the microphones. If you don't mind, we can just pull them over
Okay.
closer to you.
Listen, here we go.
Yeah, I got a big enough.
For our third question. Now, as recent hurricanes have devastated Puerto Rico, Texas, and other parts of the Gulf of Mexico, New Yorkers cannot help but remember the damage caused by Hurricane Sandy. What are your recommendations for how the U.S. can improve its response to such catastrophes? And we'll begin with Congresswoman Malone.
After Sandy, which was devastating, in certain areas people were not hurt above roughly 60th Street, except for on the waterfront. But below, people lost their electricity and were suffering for quite a long time. One of the things that we did is we changed the aid formula. It used to be that FEMA, you had to rebuild the way it was destroyed. And it changed it so that we could rebuild it for the 21st century, which is just common sense, as Mr. Rabin said. So that we could put the generators on the top floor. And in the rebuilding process, we tried to renovate and make it ready for the next storm. Very importantly, we got roughly $5 billion. $1 billion went to the L train that was destroyed during Sandy, and will be closed for 15 months to be rebuilt and renovated. But a lot of this money, a significant portion of it, goes for what we are calling a resiliency plan, which the City of New York is in charge of coming forward with the federal government on how we get ready for the next storm. And they have been coming up with ideas of building levees and blockades and all kinds of things. I have been working with the mayor's office